Hey guys, tonight, we're stepping into the muddy, harsh trenches of World War I, a world where soldiers faced unimaginable horrors, and even the simplest things like food became a battle for survival. Beyond the guns and battles, life in the trenches was defined by constant struggle, where hunger, boredom, and fear coexisted every day. Imagine cold, damp days spent waiting for orders, eating meager rations that barely kept hope alive, and the camaraderie forged amidst suffering. Tonight's sleeping story reveals the hidden realities of trench life, stories of resilience, sacrifice, and the small comforts that kept soldiers going. If you want to experience history's rawest moments and understand the human side of war, this 2-hour journey is for you. Before we begin, please subscribe, leave a comment with your location, and stay with me until the very end, because this is a story that will stay with you long after it ends. The first light of dawn filtered weakly through a thick veil of fog, settling like a damp shroud over the endless maze of trenches. The air was heavy and cold, carrying the sharp scent of wet earth and decaying wood, mingled faintly with the musky odor of unwashed bodies pressed close in the cramped confines. Mud clung relentlessly to boots and uniforms, pulling at every step as soldiers stirred slowly from restless sleep. The narrow trenches, barely wide enough to stand, felt colder still in the damp morning air, their walls soaked through from weeks of rain and endless wear. A distant rumble of gunfire echoed across the landscape, the sharp cracks and thuds a grim reminder that danger was never far. Somewhere, a whistle pierced the air briefly before fading into the low murmur of waking men. Within these muddy corridors, soldiers began their morning rituals, cleaning weapons with worn cloths, checking ammunition, and exchanging tired nods and whispered greetings. The faint light caught on the dull gleam of bayonets and the scuffed leather of cartridge belts. The air was thick with the sounds of the trenches coming alive, soft footsteps on sodden earth, the clink of metal tools, and the quiet rustle of canvas tents pitched hastily above dot faces, pale and drawn from sleepless nights and harsh conditions, showed a mixture of fatigue and grim determination. Eyes darted nervously toward the no-man's land beyond, where the torn earth lay silent beneath the creeping fog. The smell of damp wood from splintered planks and makeshift supports mingled with the acrid tang of lingering smoke from last night's fires, creating an uneasy atmosphere that pressed upon the senses. Water dripped steadily from overhead duckboards onto the muddy floor, the soft splashes marking time in the dim morning light. Some men crouched to wash their faces in shallow pools, the cold water a shock against skin worn thin by wind and grime. Breakfast was a simple, hurried affair. Tins of bully beef passed hand to hand, hardtack biscuits crumbled between fingers, and cups of weak tea that offered little warmth but a momentary comfort. The men ate silently, their minds already focused on the tasks and dangers ahead. Orders were exchanged in low tones, plans discussed quietly amid the backdrop of distant artillery and the steady drip of rain. Each movement was deliberate, rehearsed, a fragile balance of vigilance and routine that kept the soldiers grounded in a world defined by chaos. That as the fog slowly lifted, revealing the scarred earth and twisted wire that marked the front lines, the soldiers steeled themselves for the day's trials. The trenches, with their muddy walls and cramped passages, were both home and prison, a harsh, unyielding environment that tested every ounce of endurance and courage. Yet amid the cold and grime, moments of quiet humanity flickered, a shared smile, a whispered joke, a hand resting briefly on a comrade's shoulder. These small acts of connection wove a fragile tapestry of hope, sustaining the men as they faced the unknown that lay beyond the trench's edge. The cold morning air bit sharply at exposed skin, seeping through threadbare uniforms and gnawing at the fingertips despite worn gloves. The soldiers moved cautiously, their breath rising in small misty clouds that vanished quickly into the damp atmosphere. In the cramped confines, every sound was amplified, the scrape of boots against wooden duckboards, the clink of rifles being readied, and the faint murmur of voices exchanged in low tones. The smell of unwashed bodies, damp wool, and moldy earth was ever present, a constant reminder of the harsh reality of trench life. Despite the discomfort, these men had grown accustomed to the stench, finding brief respite in moments of laughter or shared memories. The morning's first tasks were essential: repairing the fragile boards, reinforcing the trench walls with fresh sandbags, and clearing debris that threatened to collapse under the weight of the rain-soaked soil. Soldiers worked in unison, their movements practiced and efficient, knowing that any weakness in the defenses could prove fatal. The distant whistle of an officer signaled the start of sentry duty rotations. Men took their positions at the narrow firing steps, eyes scanning the desolate no-man's land for signs of movement. A cold wind swept across the trench, carrying with it the faint sounds of artillery fire and the distant shouts of commanders. The landscape beyond was a desolate scar-churned earth, shattered trees, and tangled barbed wire, stretching as far as the eye could see. In these moments of eerie calm, the soldiers found fleeting peace, gathering strength for the inevitable storm of conflict. Some sought comfort in small rituals, cleaning weapons meticulously, sharing meager cigarettes, or scribbling letters home by the flickering light of oil lamps. These acts, though simple, provided a connection to a world beyond. The trenches, a reminder of loved ones waiting in distant lands. Despite the harshness of their surroundings, camaraderie flourished. Bonds forged in mud and fire grew strong, offering a lifeline amid the chaos. Shared stories, quiet jokes, and moments of solidarity created a fragile but vital sanctuary within the grim realities of war. As the sun climbed higher, breaking through the dissipating fog, the trenches buzzed with activity, patrols preparing to leave, supplies being distributed, and the constant vigilance that defined life at the front. Every man carried the weight of duty and the hope of survival, their eyes fixed on the uncertain horizon. The damp earth beneath their feet shifted with every step, mud sucking at boots and making movements slow and treacherous. Men slipped and stumbled, their weary bodies tested not just by enemy fire, but by the unforgiving terrain itself. The narrow trenches offered little room to maneuver, forcing soldiers into close quarters where every breath mingled with the collective weariness and determination of the group. Faint rays of sunlight pierced the morning mist, casting ghostly shadows over the shattered landscape, a world torn apart by war yet stubbornly clinging to life. Amidst the ruin, the soldiers prepared for the day ahead, patching holes, reinforcing parapets, and checking weapons with practiced care. The scent of damp canvas and rusted metal filled the air, mingling with the faint, bitter temps of cordite and the earthy aroma of trampled soil. Conversations were brief but meaningful words of encouragement, tactical updates, and shared concerns whispered between comrades. The soldiers' faces bore the marks of sleepless nights, cold winds, and unspoken fears, yet their resolve remained unbroken. As the morning wore on, the distant thunder of artillery grew louder, signaling the persistent danger that loomed beyond the trenches. Yet within this harsh, claustrophobic environment, moments of quiet humanity flickered: a shared smile, a comforting hand, a whispered prayer. These small acts sustained the men, knitting them together in a fragile but unyielding brotherhood. The trenches were more than mere ditches in the earth. They were a crucible of endurance, where the limits of human spirit and strength were tested and, time and again, proven resilient. As the morning light grew stronger, soldiers prepared for the daily routines that defined life in the trenches. Meals were hastily consumed, tins of bully beef and hardtack biscuits, offering little in flavor but much in sustenance. The taste was often harsh, the biscuits stale and crumbly, yet these simple rations were a lifeline amid scarcity. Coffee, brewed weekly over small fires, provided a brief moment of warmth and alertness. The aroma was faint but welcomed, cutting through the dampness and fatigue that clung to every man. Hygiene was a constant challenge. The cramped conditions and limited water made cleanliness a rare luxury. Soldiers scrubbed faces and hands with cold water drawn from muddy trenches or rationed supplies, a task that was as much about maintaining morale as it was about health. The smell of wet wool and unwashed bodies was ever present, mingling with the earthy scent of mud and the faint smoke from cooking fires. Soldiers took turns on watch, their eyes scanning the desolate no-man's land for any sign of movement. The stillness was heavy, broken only by distant gunfire and the occasional whistle or shout. Some used these moments to write letters home, their hands steady despite the cold, their thoughts reaching out across miles of battlefields and seas. In these quiet intervals, The weight of war seemed momentarily to lift, replaced by memories of family, peace, and the life that awaited beyond the trenches, yet the reality was never far. Each sound and shadow a reminder of the ever-present danger and the uncertainty of what the next day would bring. The soldiers moved with a practiced rhythm, their bodies conditioned to the relentless demands of trench life. They checked and maintained their weapons, rifles carefully cleaned, bayonets sharpened to a fine edge, and ammunition counted and secured. Every piece of equipment was vital. Any failure could mean disaster amid the chaos of battle. The muddy trench walls offered little protection from the elements, but soldiers adapted, fashioning makeshift shelters from canvas and timber, using sandbags to reinforce weak points, and covering exposed areas with tarps and oilcloth. The ever-present dampness seeped into clothing and bones, chilling men to the core despite layers of wool and leather. Yet even in these harsh conditions, camaraderie flourished. Quiet jokes passed between shifts, and shared cigarettes provided fleeting moments of normalcy. The soldiers understood the importance of these small acts, patches of light in the heavy shadow of war. As morning edged toward noon, the trench buzzed quietly with preparation and tension, each man readying for whatever the day might bring. The landscape beyond remained scarred and silent, a testament to the brutal conflict that had transformed fields and forests into wastelands. Inside the trenches, life continued, raw, difficult, and unyielding, yet marked by resilience and the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood. The soldiers' routines were punctuated by moments of vigilance, eyes scanning the barren no-man's land through narrow periscopes, and over the trench's lip, the barbed wire and shell-crated earth stretched endlessly, a dangerous expanse that bore silent witness to countless battles. Occasionally, distant explosions shook the ground, sending tremors through the trench walls and stirring both fear and determination in the men's hearts. Mail from the front lines was a precious connection to home, delivered sporadically by weary runners who braved the perilous terrain. Each letter carried hope and reassurance, a lifeline amid the uncertainty of war. Despite the harsh conditions, the soldiers found ways to support one another, sharing rations, patching uniforms, and offering quiet words of encouragement. These acts of kindness were vital, sustaining morale and reminding each man that he was not alone. The morning wore on with a steady rhythm of preparation, observation, and endurance, a delicate balance between routine and the unpredictable demands of battle. In this unforgiving environment, the soldiers' resolve was tested daily, yet their spirits remained steadfast. The narrow trench corridors echoed softly with the shuffle of boots and the murmur of low conversations. Men moved deliberately, conserving energy while remaining alert to the slightest sound that might signal danger. The weight of wet equipment and heavy clothing pressed down, adding to the physical toll of each day. Smoke from cooking fires curled upward, mingling with the damp air and carrying the faint aroma of stew and burnt wood. Occasionally, a stray cat or rat scurried through, a small reminder of life's persistence, even amid devastation. Some soldiers took brief moments to write in journals, their pens scratching quietly as they captured thoughts, fears, and hopes. These private reflections provided an emotional outlet, a way to maintain sanity in a world turned upside down. The sun climbed higher, but the trenches remained cold and shadowed, shielded from warmth by the earth and sky. Despite the relentless hardships, the men pressed on, their endurance a testament to human will and the unyielding bonds of comradeship. The early morning light barely pierced the gray skies as soldiers gathered around their sparse supplies, readying for another day in the trenches. Tins of bully beef, sealed tight and dented from long journeys, were cracked open with rusty spoons, releasing a pungent aroma that was both familiar and wearisome. The meat was tough and salty, its oily sheen reflecting the dim light as soldiers tore into it with a mix of hunger and resignation. Hardtack biscuits, dry, brittle slabs of baked flour and water, crumbled under fingers, their flavor as bland and unyielding as the mud that surrounded the trenches. Some soldiers joked bitterly about the toothbreaker biscuits, trading pieces to test who could endure the toughest bite, laughter echoing faintly despite the grim circumstances. Fresh items were rare treasures, often limited to the occasional onion or small piece of stale bread. brought up from supply lines. The taste and texture of trench food were far from pleasant, a combination of saltiness, dryness, and the faint metallic tang of canned goods that lingered on the tongue. Yet these simple rations were vital, the lifeblood sustaining men through endless days and nights of uncertainty. Improvisation was key to making meals more palatable. Soldiers fashioned makeshift grills from scrap metal, balancing small pots over open flames fed by wood, coal, or even discarded ration tins. The crackle of fire brought a small comfort, a momentary reprieve from the damp cold and endless mud. Some boiled bully beef with water to soften its texture, creating a thin stew that soldiers shared quietly, savoring warmth and companionship. Others used their bayonets or mess tins to roast roots or scavenged vegetables, the smoky aroma a rare delight. Amid the trench's harsh odors, trench kitchens were humble affairs, cramped, smoky spaces where groups huddled to prepare meals with limited fuel and even scarcer ingredients. Despite the challenges, these moments of cooking and sharing food were vital for morale, offering brief escapes into normalcy and community. Stories circulated about creative recipes born from necessity, adding water to hardtack to make a gritty porridge, or mixing condensed milk with whatever sweeteners could be found for a rare treat. The soldiers' resourcefulness extended to trading food among units, exchanging tins of bully beef for fresh eggs or cheese when supply trucks arrived. These exchanges were not just about nutrition, but gestures of camaraderie and mutual support. Small acts of kindness in a brutal environment. Yet food scarcity and monotony took a toll, and maintaining morale through the simple act of eating became a daily struggle. The sight of empty ration tins and the weight of hunger underscored the precariousness of life at the front. Even so, the soldiers faced these hardships with quiet resilience, their meals a small but critical thread in the fabric of survival. The bitter cold made even the simplest meals a challenge. Hands numb from frost and grime struggled to unwrap tins or break apart the hardtack biscuits, their rough surfaces scraping against cracked lips. Occasionally, a soldier would find a small patch of dry earth near the trench edge, where he could light a modest fire. The flame's flicker was a rare comfort, drawing weary men close to warm their fingers and share a few moments of camaraderie. Makeshift grills, cobbled together from scrap iron and bent wire, became vital tools for transforming meager rations into something resembling a meal. The scent of heated bully beef, sizzling over a flame, mingled with the sharp aroma of burnt biscuit crumbs, was a reminder of normalcy amidst the chaos. Tea, often weak and steeped from leaves, rationed carefully, was a cherished ritual. The warmth it provided was more than physical. It was a brief moment of solace in the cold and damp. Soldiers shared stories as the tea brewed, the quiet chatter a fragile shield against despair. Despite the scarcity, moments of ingenuity surfaced. One man famously wrapped bully beef in tinfoil and buried it near a hot ember, creating a primitive form of slow-cooked stew. Others used their mess tins to fry small pieces of captured bacon or vegetables scavenged from bombed-out gardens, savoring the smoky flavors that broke the monotony. Occasionally, supply trucks brought fresh bread or cheese, sparking a ripple of excitement through the trenches. These treats were devoured quickly, their fleeting pleasures a balm for weary souls. However, the constant dampness often ruined food stores. Biscuits softened into soggy lumps, and canned goods rusted or leaked, forcing soldiers to eat hastily or discard their meager meals. Rats, bold and numerous, scavenged relentlessly, sometimes snatching unattended food and forcing men to guard their rations closely. The battle against hunger was ongoing, a test of patience and resourcefulness. Yet, amid these hardships, the act of sharing food, no matter how humble, reinforced bonds and sustained morale. Soldiers learned to find comfort in these small rituals, holding on to fragments of normal life amid the unrelenting grip of war. The soldiers' ingenuity extended beyond cooking. Many crafted utensils and tools from scrap materials to improve their daily meals. Tin cans were reshaped into makeshift cups and plates, while bent wires served as grills and holders for pots over open flames. Some carved spoons and forks from wood or bone, their rough-hewn edges smoothing with use and care. These simple innovations made eating more manageable, offering a semblance of dignity in harsh conditions. Even the act of washing dishes was a challenge. Water was scarce and often cold, so men used sand or earth to scrub pots before rinsing with limited supplies. Food preparation became a communal activity, fostering camaraderie and offering moments of distraction from the surrounding violence. The aroma of simmering stews, however simple, brought a sense of comfort and hope to the weary soldiers. In rare moments of leisure, soldiers exchanged recipes and cooking tips, turning scarcity into a shared game of creativity. One soldier's story told of boiling grass roots to extract flavor and nutrients, turning nature's offerings into life-sustaining meals. Another described mixing powdered eggs with water to create a makeshift omelette, eaten quickly before the cold could steal its warmth. These acts of culinary creativity were acts of resistance against the grimness of trench life, moments where soldiers reclaimed a small piece of humanity. Despite the hardships, food remained a vital source of strength, fueling bodies, boosting spirits, and nurturing the bonds that held the men together. The morning light barely warmed the trenches as soldiers gathered their sparse rations, the familiar clink of tin cans punctuating the cold air. Each meal was a battle against monotony bully, beef's salty chew, hardtack's relentless crunch, and the bitter dregs of weak tea marking the limits of comfort. Yet within this meager fare lay an unspoken ritual, a momentary escape from the constant tension that gripped the front lines. In quiet corners, men huddled around small fires, sharing their food and stories, the smoke rising like a fragile bridge between hardship and hope. Occasionally, someone managed to scavenge fresh vegetables or bread, and the rare taste of freshness was met with silent gratitude and fleeting joy. The soldiers' ingenuity was evident in every makeshift stove and improvised grill. Their resourcefulness, a quiet defiance against the harshness of war. Shared meals were a lifeline, a thread weaving men together in a tapestry of survival and camaraderie. Though the food was often unsatisfying, the act of eating alongside comrades offered a sense of normalcy and connection, even as hunger gnawed and spirits flagged. These moments around the fire stoked a resilience that no enemy could extinguish. In the trenches, food was more than fuel. It was a symbol of endurance, a testament to the human spirit amid chaos. The soldiers often improvised meals using whatever they could find, sometimes mixing bully beef with stale bread or adding captured vegetables to their stews. In the damp trenches, cooking was fraught with challenges, limited fuel, unpredictable weather, and the ever-present threat of enemy fire. Yet these men demonstrated remarkable determination, fashioning fires from scraps of wood and coal, coaxing warmth and nourishment from the most meager resources. Their cooking utensils were often makeshift, a battered tin can transformed into a pot, a bent wire repurposed as a grill, a spoon carved from wood or bone. The smell of cooking food was a rare but powerful comfort, drifting through the cold air and reminding soldiers of home and normalcy. Even simple acts, brewing a pot of tea or warming a piece of bread, became moments of solace and quiet joy. Despite the harsh conditions, soldiers looked forward to mealtime as a chance to rest, share stories, and find brief respite from the war's relentless grind. These small rituals helped maintain morale and fostered a sense of community in the midst of hardship. The trenches were a place of struggle, but also of resilience, where even the humblest meal could become a symbol of hope and survival. The trench was a world of scarcity, where every scrap of food was precious, and every meal a triumph of resourcefulness. In narrow, muddy corners of the trenches, makeshift kitchens emerged, crude fires built from scavenged wood, small pots balanced on bent wire grills, and soldiers gathered closely to prepare their humble fare. The air was thick with the rich aroma of stews simmering over open flames, a blend of canned meats, dried vegetables, and whatever roots or foraged items could be found. The smell was smoky and earthy, a fragile comfort amid the damp, cold air and the omnipresent scent of mud and metal. Soldiers shared these meals communally, passing bowls from hand to hand, their faces illuminated by flickering flames and shadowed by fatigue. The act of sharing food was more than sustenance. It was a gesture of solidarity and hope in a world torn apart by war. Captured food became a valuable addition to these meals, looted from enemy supplies or found in abandoned kitchens. Tins of preserved fruit, fresh bread, or even bottles of spirits brought rare moments of joy. Stories spread quickly of daring raids that secured fresh eggs or vegetables, transforming ordinary rations into feasts that lifted spirits and forged bonds. Improvised bread was a common creation, made from powdered rations or scavenged flour mixed with water and cooked over small fires. The texture was rough and dense, the taste bland but welcome against the constant monotony of hardtack biscuits. Roasted roots, gathered from the devastated landscape, added variety and nourishment, their smoky sweetness a reminder of life persisting even amid destruction. Traders and bartering networks flourished within the trenches, as soldiers exchanged items, tobacco for canned goods, extra food for a bit of warmth or a favor. These exchanges were vital, creating microeconomies that sustained morale and offered a semblance of normal life. The rituals of trench cooking and eating became moments of respite, where laughter could be heard amid the clatter of utensils and the crackle of fire. Despite scarcity and hardship, the soldiers' creativity transformed limited ingredients into meals that nourished body and soul alike. Each shared stew or roasted root was a small victory, a beacon of humanity amid the relentless grind of war. The makeshift kitchens were often hidden in small dugouts or behind sandbag walls, shielded from enemy fire but never truly safe from the elements. Rain seeped through gaps in canvas roofs, drenching supplies and making fires difficult to maintain. Soldiers fought to keep flames alive, coaxing warmth from wet wood and discarded ration tins. Yet, despite these obstacles, the kitchens buzzed with life, men working side by side to prepare meals that went beyond mere survival. Improvised recipes were born of necessity, mixing bully beef with powdered soup mixes, boiling hardtack until softened, or creating stews thickened with crushed biscuits. The smell of cooking food was a small but powerful comfort, drawing soldiers together in shared anticipation and providing a brief escape from the horrors outside. Occasionally, they experimented with captured enemy rations, discovering new flavors and ingredients that brightened their meager meals. Fresh vegetables were a rare luxury, often scavenged from bombed-out fields or garden patches near the front lines. Quickly cooked over open flames or boiled into nourishing broths, the taste of these additions was cherished, a reminder of life beyond the mud and blood. Communal cooking fostered a sense of camaraderie, as men exchanged tips, recipes, and laughter while tending fires and preparing meals. These moments strengthened bonds and lifted morale, becoming rituals that soldiers clung to in the bleakest of times. Food was shared, not only out of necessity, but as an act of kindness, a gesture of humanity amid inhuman conditions. The simple pleasure of a warm meal, eaten together in the flickering firelight, became a source of hope and resilience. Even in the trenches, where scarcity reigned, soldiers found ways to nurture both body and spirit through the art of cooking. Smoke curled gently from the small fires, mingling with the damp air and the faint scent of roasted root vegetables and sizzling canned meats. The crackling of flames was a constant companion, a soothing background to conversations, quiet jokes, and the clinking of worn mess tins. Soldiers passed around simple stews, their warm, salty flavors a stark contrast to the cold and mud that defined trench life. The texture was often rough, ingredients mashed or chopped crudely with whatever knives or spoons were at hand. Yet the shared meal held a significance far beyond taste. Cooking was a way to reclaim a sense of control and normalcy, a small rebellion against the chaos of war. Some men carried personal touches, a favored spice, a precious bottle of jam, or a secret recipe passed down through families. These small luxuries became treasured possessions, their flavors and scents transporting soldiers briefly back to home and hearth. In the deepest trenches, where supplies were even scarcer, soldiers learned to stretch their rations further, mixing flavors and textures creatively to avoid monotony. The invention of trench stew, a patchwork of whatever ingredients were available, became a common practice, with each man adding his own touch to the communal pot. These shared culinary experiments fostered camaraderie, as men gathered around fires to taste and critique each new variation. Food became more than sustenance. It was a bond that united men across lines of nationality, rank, and experience. even in the shadow of death. These moments of shared meal and laughter sustained the human spirit. Trench cooking was an exercise in ingenuity, turning scarcity into sustenance through grit and imagination. Men learned to improvise with what little they had, adding dried herbs scavenged from the fields to flavor stews, using scraps of bread to thicken broths, and melting snow carefully to supplement limited water supplies. The camaraderie that grew around these meals was vital. Stories were exchanged, songs softly sung, and laughter shared amidst the flickering firelight. One soldier recalled how a simple addition of a scavenged onion transformed a tin of bully beef into a hearty stew that lifted spirits for days. Others traded spices, sharing small treasures that brightened the bleakest of days. Makeshift ovens fashioned from scrap metal allowed for slow roasting of roots or meat, creating meals that were more than just survival. There were moments of joy and connection. The act of cooking and eating together forged bonds that extended beyond the trenches, building a sense of family amid the turmoil. These rituals of food and fellowship were lifelines, nourishing not just the body but the soul. Despite the ever-present hardships, the art of trench cooking became a testament to human resilience and creativity. The soldiers' meals, humble though they were, carried the weight of hope and the promise of enduring together. The taste of trench stew, smoky and rich despite its humble ingredients, lingered as a reminder that even in war's darkest hours, moments of comfort could be found. Soldiers savored the warmth spreading through their bodies, the brief respite from cold and hunger, a precious gift. In some units, cooks became revered figures, their skill at transforming ration tins into hearty meals earning respect and gratitude. Recipes were passed down informally, shared between soldiers as closely guarded secrets, each variation a reflection of the cook's ingenuity. Even the act of cleaning up after meals was a communal effort, with men scrubbing mess tins using cold water and sand, their hands raw but steady. The challenges of maintaining hygiene extended to food preparation. Contamination and spoilage were constant threats in the damp trenches. Yet, through careful handling and shared vigilance, soldiers did their best to protect what little nourishment they had. Despite these obstacles, the food, however simple or scarce, was a symbol of survival, a tangible link to the world beyond. The trenches. In these shared moments around fires and meals, soldiers found the strength to endure, their spirits buoyed by the taste of home. However faint it might be, the soldiers' ingenuity extended beyond cooking. Many crafted utensils and tools from scrap materials to improve their daily meals. Tin cans were reshaped into makeshift cups and plates, while bent wire served as grills and holders for pots over open flames. Some carved spoons and forks from wood or bone, their rough-hewn edges smoothing with use and care. These simple innovations made eating more manageable, offering a semblance of dignity in harsh conditions. Even the act of washing dishes was a challenge. Water was scarce and often cold, so men used sand or earth to scrub pots before rinsing with limited supplies. Food preparation became a communal activity, fostering camaraderie and offering moments of distraction from the surrounding violence. The aroma of simmering stews, however simple, brought a sense of comfort and hope to the weary soldiers. In rare moments of leisure, soldiers exchanged recipes and cooking tips, turning scarcity into a shared game of creativity. One soldier's story told of boiling grass roots to extract flavor and nutrients, turning nature's offerings into life-sustaining meals. Another described mixing powdered eggs with water to create a makeshift omelette, eaten quickly before the cold could steal its warmth. These acts of culinary creativity were acts of resistance against the grimness of trench life, moments where soldiers reclaimed a small piece of humanity. Despite the hardships, food remained a vital source of strength, fueling bodies, boosting spirits, and nurturing the bonds that held the men together. The fires crackled softly as soldiers gathered their meager supplies, transforming the harsh reality of their rations into moments of warmth and connection. Aromatic steam rose from makeshift pots, carrying scents of salted meats mingled with the earthiness of foraged roots and the sharp tang of preserved vegetables. The crackling of firewood and the murmur of hushed conversations filled the air, weaving a fragile tapestry of camaraderie. Amid the relentless cold. Despite the sparse ingredients, the shared meals offered a rare sense of normalcy, a brief reprieve from the chaos of battle. Soldiers carefully rationed their supplies, mindful that each morsel might be the difference between strength and exhaustion in the days to come. In these small acts of preparation and sharing, they forged bonds that transcended the mud and barbed wire, grounding them in a shared purpose and hope. From tin cans to cracked pots, every utensil and container bore the marks of improvisation, each repurposed item a testament to human resilience. Even the simplest meal was infused with meaning, a symbol of endurance, a spark of humanity amid the unyielding hardships of war. The trenches were a maze of mud and misery, where even the simplest necessity, water, was a precious and often elusive commodity. Dawn found soldiers gathering cautiously at makeshift water points, where barrels and pumps struggled to provide the life-sustaining liquid. The water's taste was often bitter and earthy, tinged with the faint metallic trace of rust from the corroded barrels and pipes. Its smell was faint but unmistakable, mix of damp earth, decaying vegetation, and the faintest hint of chemicals used in crude purification attempts. Men dipped cups and canteens into these reserves with grim acceptance, knowing that clean water was a luxury in a world overwhelmed by mud and decay. Rainwater was sometimes collected in large sheets of canvas or improvised gutters, offering a slightly fresher alternative, though often tainted by debris and the grime of the trenches. Purification methods were rudimentary, boiling water over open fires, when fuel was available, or using basic filters fashioned from cloth and sand. Yet these efforts were frequently insufficient, and contaminated water led to widespread illness, weakening men already battered by war. The smell of latrines was a constant assault on the senses, a pungent blend of human waste, mud, and the faint stench of disinfectants struggling to mask the overwhelming odors. Soldiers developed grim routines for managing sanitation, digging shallow pits or using makeshift latrines as far from living quarters as possible. Still, proximity to the trenches and poor drainage meant that contamination was a persistent and dangerous threat. Hygiene was a daily battle. Limited water supplies forced men to ration washes, relying on wet cloths and occasional scrubbing to stave off the grime and lice that thrived in the damp environment. The feel of cold water against skin was both refreshing and harsh, a brief relief from the pervasive dirt and sweat. Rats and insects carried disease, their presence exacerbated by poor sanitation and the crowded conditions. Yet soldiers found ways to cope, exchanging notes on makeshift cleaning methods, sharing scarce supplies of disinfectant, and using tobacco smoke as a primitive insect repellent. Morale was deeply affected by these conditions. The struggle for cleanliness was a constant reminder of vulnerability and the precariousness of life in the trenches. But amid these hardships, camaraderie endured. Men helped each other bathe with limited water, shared tips, and found humor. In even the bleakest moments, cleanliness became not just a physical necessity, but a small act of dignity and resistance. The rituals of washing, cleaning clothes, and maintaining personal space were precious routines that anchored soldiers amid the chaos. Water and hygiene were lifelines in the mud, vital threads in the fragile fabric of survival. The muddy trenches were a constant challenge to maintaining even the most basic cleanliness. Rainwater mixed with soil, turning pathways into slick, treacherous stretches where water pooled in deep, cold puddles. Soldiers carefully balanced on duckboards, narrow wooden planks laid over the mud, to avoid sinking into the muck. Each step a test of focus and endurance. Water for drinking and washing was often drawn from nearby wells or collected rain, but contamination was a frequent hazard. The stagnant pools trapped debris and waste, their surfaces mottled with oil slicks and the occasional insect. The taste of trench water varied, sometimes metallic and bitter, other times faintly sweet from collected rain, but always tinged with an underlying dirtiness that reminded men of their harsh environment. Despite the risks, water was essential. Soldiers carefully rationed their daily supply, using it sparingly for drinking, cooking, and washing. Bathing was a rare luxury, often limited to wiping down with wet cloths or quick scrubs at the edges of the trenches, where fresh water was most accessible. Lice infestations were a constant torment, their bites causing itching and spreading disease. Soldiers developed routines for deopting, using improvised combs and powders when available. The smell of unwashed bodies mixed with damp wool and mud created a pervasive, heavy odor that hung in the air. Sanitation facilities were crude pits, dug away from living quarters, served as latrines, often overflowing after heavy rains, spreading contamination further. Some units attempted rudimentary waste management, covering latrines with earth or using lime to reduce odors, but success was limited. Despite these conditions, soldiers supported each other through shared knowledge and care. They exchanged tips on hygiene practices and rationed scarce cleaning supplies with fairness. Maintaining hygiene was more than a health measure. It was a way to preserve morale and a sense of humanity in a dehumanizing environment. The daily struggle for clean water and basic cleanliness underscored the brutal realities of trench warfare, yet also highlighted the resilience and ingenuity of the men who endured. Each small victory, a clean patch of clothing, a successful wash, a moment free of lice, became a beacon of hope in the relentless mud. The soldiers often found themselves improvising to cope with the scarcity of clean water. Buckets and tins collected rainwater during rare showers, but this water required careful filtering to avoid illness. Men fashioned rudimentary filters using layers of cloth, sand, and charcoal, trying to remove impurities before boiling what little they had. Boiling water over a small fire was a luxury. Fuel was limited and fires had to be hidden from enemy eyes, making the process slow and perilous. Despite their best efforts, many soldiers suffered from ailments caused by contaminated water. Dysentery and cholera were common foes that claimed many lives in the trenches. Medical officers struggled to contain outbreaks, using quarantine and crude sanitation measures when possible, but the sheer volume of men and poor conditions made control difficult. The psychological toll of these hardships weighed heavily. Soldiers longed not only for safety, but for the simple relief of fresh water and cleanliness. Some wrote home of the grim conditions, describing water as a bitter, foul necessity. That was as much a threat as any enemy bullet. Yet, within this harsh reality, the men adapted, their resilience shining through. They developed rituals, washing hands before meals, careful disposal of waste, and using tobacco smoke to deter insects, that offered small protections in a dangerous world. The daily battle for hygiene and clean water was a quiet but relentless struggle, as critical to survival as any fight on the battlefield. Through these efforts, the soldiers upheld a semblance of order and dignity, fighting not just for victory but for life itself. Amid the mud and chaos, the necessity of maintaining hygiene led to the creation of simple routines that soldiers clung to for comfort and survival. Before meals, men gathered at communal washing points, small pools or troughs filled with cold, often murky water. They wiped faces and hands with damp cloths. The chill, a sharp but cleansing sensation that momentarily broke the monotony of grime and exhaustion. Clothes, too, were washed, when possible, though drying them was a constant challenge in the damp trench environment. Soldiers hung garments on ropes strung between wooden posts, or draped them over duckboards, hoping for sunlight or a breeze that rarely came. The smell of damp fabric mingled with sweat and earth, a pervasive reminder of the harsh conditions. Despite these challenges, men took pride in these small acts of cleanliness, a way to assert control and humanity in an otherwise uncontrollable situation. Some units developed competitions to keep spirits high. Who could maintain the cleanest uniform or the neatest equipment became a source of friendly rivalry. These contests fostered camaraderie and a sense of normalcy. Amid chaos, latrines, crude and often perilous to use, were an unavoidable part of trench life. Soldiers navigated narrow, slippery paths to reach them, aware that each trip carried risks from enemy fire and disease. Despite the dangers, the latrines were vital for managing waste and limiting outbreaks of illness. In some trenches, efforts were made to improve sanitation by digging deeper pits or constructing rudimentary drainage systems. These improvements, though modest, were crucial in reducing the spread of disease and maintaining morale. Through these daily struggles with water and hygiene, the soldiers demonstrated remarkable resilience, adapting to an environment that tested their limits. Each wash, each clean uniform, and each functioning latrine was a small victory. a testament to human perseverance amid the mud and mire of war. The constant battle against lice and vermin was one of the most dreaded challenges in the trenches. Soldiers suffered relentless itching and discomfort, their skin raw from scratching. Lice were not just a nuisance but carriers of disease, spreading trench fever and other illnesses that weakened the men. To combat these pests, soldiers used whatever means they could find: improvised combs fashioned from wood or metal, powders made from tobacco, ashes or chemicals when available, and regular inspections by comrades. Delousing stations were set up behind the lines, where men received treatment to reduce infestations. Though these were temporary reprieves, the presence of rats, bold and numerous, added another layer of misery. These scavengers thrived on the abundance of food scraps and waste, sometimes gnawing on soldiers while they slept. Their squeals and sudden movements were a constant source of anxiety and discomfort. Efforts to control the rat population included trapping, poisoning, and strict waste management, but success was limited by the conditions. Despite these hardships, soldiers developed dark humor and stories about their furry tormentors, finding a way to cope with the relentless discomfort. The struggle for cleanliness and health was a daily ordeal, but it underscored the men's determination to endure. Each small step towards improved hygiene was a battle won against the brutal realities of trench life. The soldiers' resilience extended beyond physical endurance. It was a mental and emotional battle to maintain dignity in the face of squalor. Personal hygiene routines, though difficult, became rituals that reinforced identity and morale. Some men crafted small mirrors from broken glass or polished metal, using them to inspect their faces and equipment. A small act of self-care amid chaos. Barbers sometimes visited the front lines, offering haircuts and shaves when possible, providing brief moments of normalcy and comfort. The sharing of scarce soap and clean cloths was an act of kindness and solidarity among soldiers, symbolizing trust and community. In letters home, many wrote about their struggles with cleanliness, but also their determination to hold on to humanity. Despite limited resources, the soldiers' efforts to stay clean reflected an unyielding spirit, a refusal to be wholly consumed by war's degradation. The interplay of physical and psychological hygiene was vital, each reinforcing the other in the fight for survival. As the trenches settled into daily rhythms, the importance of water and hygiene became clear, not just for health, but as anchors of hope and resilience in this muddy, chaotic world. Small victories in cleanliness and care were beacons of light, guiding soldiers through the darkest times. The importance of water extended beyond drinking and washing. It was also vital for cooking and preserving food. Limited water supplies meant soldiers had to be judicious, often reusing water or collecting moisture from rain and dew. This scarcity complicated meal preparation, requiring creativity and careful planning to ensure that food was both edible and as nutritious as possible. Water contamination remained a constant threat, with outbreaks of disease often linked to unsafe supplies. Medical personnel worked tirelessly to educate soldiers on the importance of clean water and proper sanitation practices. Despite the challenging conditions, soldiers adapted by using boiled water when possible and improvising filters, though these methods were often inconsistent. The psychological impact of water scarcity was profound. Thirst and uncleanliness compounded the stresses of combat, eroding morale and physical strength. Yet, even in these dire circumstances, the determination to maintain hygiene and access to clean water underscored the resilience of the men. Water was a lifeline, a precious resource around which survival, health, and hope revolved. In the muddy trenches, it was the thread that tied together the complex struggle for life and dignity. The challenge of sanitation extended beyond personal hygiene to the management of waste within the cramped trenches. Soldiers dug latrines where possible, pits carefully placed away from living quarters, but still prone to overflowing after heavy rains. The stench from these areas was overpowering, mixing with the damp earth and the ever-present mud to mask the odors. Men scattered lime or ash, though these were in limited supply. The proximity of waste to water supplies heightened the risk of contamination and illness, creating a cycle that was difficult to break. Despite these obstacles, soldiers adhered to strict routines for waste disposal, understanding its critical role in disease prevention. Communal efforts to clean and maintain latrines fostered a sense of responsibility and care amid chaos. Small victories, a repaired drain, a covered pit, or a cleaned pathway were celebrated quietly, reinforcing the soldiers' collective resilience. The interplay of hygiene, sanitation, and water access was a constant balancing act, essential to maintaining the fragile health of the men, even amid mud and misery. The commitment to these efforts reflected a profound will to survive and protect one another. In the cold, damp trenches, moments of comfort were as precious as life itself, fleeting glimpses of normalcy in a world turned upside down. The arrival of fresh food was a rare event, and when tins of chocolate or fresh fruit appeared, they were met with quiet awe and silent gratitude. The rich, sweet aroma of chocolate was a stark contrast to the earthy smells of mud and sweat, its taste a brief escape to a kinder world. Soldiers savored each bite slowly, allowing the bittersweet flavors to warm their spirits. Even as the chill seeped through their clothes, cigarettes were another treasured luxury, their smoke curling upward in lazy spirals that briefly softened the harshness of trench life. The act of lighting a cigarette was a ritual, hands fumbling with matches or lighters, faces briefly illuminated by the flame's glow. The bitter taste of tobacco filled the mouth, mingling with the cold air, and providing a moment of calm reflection. Tea, brewed weak, and often over small fires, offered both warmth and comfort. The fragrant steam rose slowly, carrying with it memories of home and hearth. Sharing tea was an act of fellowship, a small ceremony that knit soldiers closer amid the chaos. Letters from loved ones were perhaps the most profound source of solace. Men cherished these fragile pieces of paper, reading and rereading the words that bridged miles and battles. The scent of ink and paper, the familiar handwriting of mothers, wives, and children, brought tears and smiles in equal measure. In these letters, hope and love persisted, lifelines that sustained the weary hearts and fueled the determination to endure. Soldiers often carried letters close to their hearts, tucking them safely away beneath uniforms or in pockets worn thin by constant handling. The anticipation of mail deliveries created brief surges of excitement and joy, a respite from the relentless grind of trench life. Even small gestures, a shared chocolate bar, a cigarette passed quietly between friends, a hot cup of tea, became symbols of care and connection. These moments of comfort nurtured morale and reminded men of their shared humanity. They were reminders that beyond the mud and misery, life continued, vibrant and precious, in the trenches, where death lurked close and fear was a constant companion. These small joys were beacons of light. They rekindled hope, bolstered spirits, and strengthened the bonds that held men together. Against overwhelming odds, the simple act of sharing a cigarette created a circle of calm amid chaos, the smoke rising slowly as men exchanged stories and silent companionship. Even in the darkest hours, the ritual brought a fleeting sense of normal life, a moment where worries faded into the background. Chocolate, when it appeared, was treated like a precious gem, broken into small pieces to be savored over days or shared discreetly among friends. Its sweetness cut through the bitterness of war, evoking memories of childhood and home, offering comfort beyond its flavor. Tea, brewed over small stoves or open flames, was more than a drink. It was a balm to chilled bodies and tired minds. The steam rising from a cup warmed frozen hands and carried the aroma of distant kitchens and family gatherings. Soldiers gathered quietly to sip their tea, the simple warmth, a brief but vital respite. Letters from home were often read aloud in hushed tones, voices trembling with emotion as words of love and hope traveled across the miles. These letters were cherished keepsakes, worn soft from handling, and carefully folded into pockets or tucked beneath shirts. The news they contained, births, marriages, simple everyday moments, reminded men of the world beyond the trenches. Each letter was a lifeline, a reminder that they were not forgotten, that their sacrifices mattered. In moments when despair threatened to overwhelm, these tangible connections to home lifted spirits and renewed resolve. Care packages occasionally arrived, filled with rare luxuries like fresh fruit, sweets, or warm clothing, treasures that brightened bleak days. Receiving such parcels sparked quiet celebrations, boosting morale and reminding soldiers of the love and support waiting for them. Even small treats could make a difference. Their flavors and textures a brief return to a life before war. These moments of comfort, so fragile yet so powerful, were vital threads in the fabric of survival. They nurtured hope and reminded soldiers of the enduring human spirit that persisted amid hardship. Smoke curled softly from shared cigarettes, weaving through the cold air as comrades gathered in quiet camaraderie. The ritual of lighting up brought fleeting moments of peace, hands trembling slightly from cold or nerves, faces briefly illuminated by the gentle flame. The taste of tobacco, harsh yet familiar, grounded men in their shared experience. A small comfort against the relentless uncertainty. Chocolate, when it arrived, was a treasure beyond measure, rich and sweet, its flavor lingering long after the last bite. Soldiers guarded their portions carefully, savoring each morsel as a connection to home and happier times. Tea brewed over makeshift fires filled the trenches with a delicate, soothing aroma. The steam rose gently, a warm embrace against the biting chill, gathered around the flickering flames. Soldiers found solace in these small rituals, their spirits lifted by the simple pleasures. Letters from loved ones were handled with reverence, their words read and reread beneath the cover of darkness. The scent of paper and ink became a bomb, carrying whispers of hope, love, and life beyond the war. Even the smallest message could rekindle courage and fortify resolve, reminding men of the bonds that stretched across continents and time. Care packages brought unexpected joy, their contents offering rare glimpses of comfort and normalcy. A fresh apple, a bar of chocolate, a knitted scarf. These tokens were treasured, passed quietly among friends, with smiles and gratitude. Through these moments of comfort, soldiers clung to humanity, forging connections that transcended mud, blood, and fear. In the trenches, where darkness threatened to overwhelm, these simple joys shone as beacons of hope. They sustained the spirit, reminding all that, even in the direst circumstance, the flame of resilience could never be extinguished. The ritual of writing letters offered soldiers a lifeline to a world beyond the trenches. In the flickering glow of candlelight or the faint dawn, men carefully penned words filled with longing, hope, and love. The scratch of pen on paper was a steady, soothing sound amid the chaos, a moment to collect thoughts and reach across the miles. Letters were folded, sealed, and treasured, sometimes read aloud to comrades who longed for the comforts of home. The smell of ink and paper carried memories, connecting soldiers to family dinners, children's laughter, and the quiet streets of distant towns. Each letter was a bridge between worlds, a tangible reminder that life endured beyond the mud and gunfire. Soldiers clung to these connections, finding strength in the knowledge that they were remembered and loved, even when mail was delayed or lost. The hope of receiving a letter sustained many through dark days. Care packages, often sent with great effort from families and aid organizations, brought brief bursts of joy and comfort. Their contents varied: homemade treats, warm clothing, toiletries, and small luxuries that reminded soldiers of their humanity. Receiving a parcel was an event, often celebrated quietly but with deep gratitude. These moments, though fleeting, nourished the spirit and renewed resolve. In the trenches, amidst hardship and loss, such connections to home were vital, a source of comfort, hope, and endurance. The letters from home were more than words on paper, they were lifelines. In the darkest nights, soldiers clutched these fragile pages close, their hearts lifted by familiar handwriting and heartfelt messages. The scent of ink and paper brought memories flooding back: mother's kitchen, a child's laughter, a lover's smile. These letters offered solace, a beacon guiding weary souls through uncertainty and fear. Even reading the letters aloud by the flickering fire created shared moments of connection and comfort. Care packages followed, filled with rare treats and small tokens of love: chocolates, knitted socks, tobacco, and photographs. These parcels were passed hand to hand, each item treasured and shared among comrades. The taste of a chocolate bar or the warmth of a woolen glove became symbols of hope, tangible reminders that they were not forgotten. In the trenches, where the future was uncertain and danger ever present, these small comforts sustained spirits and forged unbreakable bonds. The letters and treats were lifelines, threading through the cold mud and blood-stained earth to the hearts waiting far away. The soldiers, Anticipation for mail deliveries was palpable. Whispers spread quickly through the trenches as the post arrived, each letter and parcel a treasure. Beyond measure, men gathered eagerly, sharing the excitement and carefully dividing packages, ensuring everyone received a piece of home's warmth. That the simple act of receiving a letter could transform the mood, lifting spirits and renewing determination. Sometimes the letters contained news of births, marriages, or simple well-wishes that reminded soldiers of life's continuity beyond the front lines. Photos tucked within packages offered faces of loved ones, frozen in time, a visual comfort to hold during lonely nights. Even small tokens like a hat, scarf, or a bar of soap were cherished, their warmth and scent evoking memories and hope. These moments fostered a sense of belonging and connection that transcended the brutal realities of war. In the trenches, where uncertainty loomed, the threads linking soldiers to home were vital anchors, steadying hearts and minds. Each letter read, and every treat shared, was a reminder that they were part of something greater, a community, bound by love and resilience. These small comforts wove a fragile but powerful fabric of hope, sustaining men as they faced the long, harsh days ahead. Quiet moments around the trench fire often became times for reflection and sharing, where letters and treats sparked stories of home and dreams for the future. Men spoke softly of family gatherings, holidays missed, and hopes for reunion, their voices carrying both sorrow and strength. The simple pleasure of a shared chocolate bar or a well-smoked cigarette broke the monotony and fostered a sense of community amid hardship. Even in the darkest hours, these moments of comfort were lifelines, reminders that humanity persisted beyond the mud and gunfire. Soldiers found courage in these small rituals, their spirits lifted by the knowledge that they were remembered and loved. The warmth of friendship and the taste of familiar comforts became anchors in a world defined by uncertainty. As letters were passed and treats shared, the bonds between comrades deepened, weaving a network of support and resilience. These acts of kindness and remembrance nurtured hope, a vital force that sustained the men through the relentless trials of war. In the trenches, where every day was a struggle, such moments were precious, fleeting but powerful reminders of life, love, and the enduring human spirit. The glow of the trench fires flickered softly against the dark sky as soldiers clung to these small comforts, their faces softened by moments of peace. The scent of burning wood mixed with tobacco smoke and the faint aroma of brewed tea, creating a familiar, soothing atmosphere amid the cold and chaos. Songs hummed low, stories were whispered, and letters were shared, threads of humanity woven tightly in the fabric of trench life. These moments of connection transcended rank and background, uniting men from distant places in a shared experience of hope and endurance. The rituals of comfort, a bite of chocolate, a drag of smoke, a heartfelt letter were more than escapes. They were acts of resistance against despair on the bleakness of war. These simple joys kindled light within the soldiers' hearts, reminding them of what they fought for and who they were beyond the trenches. The enduring power of these small comforts carried men through the longest nights and hardest days, a testament to resilience and the unbreakable bonds of brotherhood. The men's laughter, though rare and fragile, echoed softly beneath the watchful stars, a gentle rebellion against the grimness surrounding them. The sharing of a cigarette or a piece of chocolate became a quiet celebration, a moment where worry faded and bonds deepened. In these moments, soldiers rediscovered pieces of themselves, the sons, fathers, and brothers who longed for home and peace. The letters they read carried voices from distant lands, words of encouragement, love, and hope that bridged the gap between battlefields and hearths. Care packages, often sent with great effort and love, arrived as tangible reminders of connection and support. Even the smallest token could uplift spirits, turning an ordinary day into one marked by gratitude and warmth. These comforts were the threads that held the soldiers' hearts together, stitching resilient into the fabric of daily life through the darkest times. These moments of kindness and remembrance shone brightly, illuminating the enduring strength of the human spirit. As the cold night deepened, soldiers huddled close, sharing these moments of warmth and hope like precious gifts. The flicker of candlelight on weathered faces told stories of endurance, resilience, and the quiet courage of men far from home. Despite the relentless hardships, The bonds forged through shared comfort became lifelines, holding the men steady amid uncertainty. The soft murmur of voices, the gentle clinking of cups, and the shared smoke of cigarettes wove a delicate tapestry of humanity in the trenches. Each small comfort was a beacon, a reminder that even amid mud and despair, the flame of hope burned bright. These moments sustained the soldiers, nurturing their spirits as much as their bodies. In the cold, dark trenches, the simple pleasures of treats, smokes, and letters from home became acts of defiance against the crushing weight of war. They were the threads that connected past and future, life and struggle, love and survival. The trenches hummed quietly with the rhythm of daily life, a fragile routine that offered structure amid the chaos of war. The soft murmur of voices mingled with the distant rumble of artillery, creating a backdrop to the steady movements of men tending to their duties. Guard duty was a solemn responsibility. Soldiers stood watch at narrow firing steps, their eyes scanning the desolate landscape for signs of movement. The cold air bit at exposed skin, and breaths came out in visible puffs, disappearing into the mist like fleeting spirits. Each shift passed slowly, marked by the occasional whistle or whispered order, a test of vigilance and endurance. Repair work was constant. Sandbags needed repositioning, duckboards mended, and trenches dug deeper or widened to withstand enemy attacks and weather's assault. The scrape of shovels against earth, the thud of sandbags landing, and the creak of wooden supports filled the air with a steady, purposeful soundtrack. Soldiers moved with practiced efficiency, their bodies weary but their resolve unwavering. Letters were a treasured part of daily life, offering moments of connection beyond the mud and wire. Men gathered in quiet corners, reading and writing by the glow of small lamps or the pale morning light. The scratch of pen on paper was a comforting sound, a thread tying the front lines to home and hope. In these moments, worries softened, and memories of loved ones came alive. Through words and images, rest was elusive but treasured. Brief pauses where soldiers could sit or lie down, their bodies sinking into the cold earth or makeshift bunks. The rough texture of wool blankets and the familiar weight of gear provided a small comfort amid the relentless uncertainty. Friendships flourished in these shared moments. Quiet conversations, exchanged cigarettes, and supportive gestures forged bonds stronger than steel. Laughter, though rare, echoed softly in the trenches, a balm to tired spirits. Stories were told, sometimes humorous, sometimes somber, each one a testament to resilience and camaraderie. The sights of the trenches, the worn faces, mud-streaked uniforms, and flickering fires bore witness to the strength of the men who lived and fought there. The interplay of sound, smell, and texture created a world both harsh and deeply human. Amidst the danger and despair, soldiers found moments of peace and connection, building a community that could withstand the darkest days. The rhythmic crunch of boots on wooden duckboards echoed softly as men moved purposefully through the trenches, their movements both practiced and cautious. The cold air carried the scent of damp earth, mingling with the faint aroma of cooking fires and the ever-present musk of worn wool and leather. Occasionally, the distant boom of artillery punctuated the quiet, a stark reminder of the world beyond these fragile walls. Men took turns on guard, their eyes sharp and alert, scanning the barren no-man's land for any sign of enemy movement. The weight of their rifles was a constant presence, the metal cold against gloved hands. During moments of respite, soldiers repaired worn uniforms and gear, sewing patches with rough thread and mending tears with determined care. The texture of fabric, rough and stained, contrasted with the smooth, hard surface of polished bayonets and leather straps. These acts of maintenance were rituals, a way to assert control and prepare for the uncertainties ahead. In quiet corners, men gathered to write letters, their faces illuminated by flickering candlelight or pale dawn. The gentle scratch of pen on paper was a soft counterpoint to the harshness surrounding them, a bridge to loved ones far away. Some paused to read received letters aloud, their voices low but filled with emotion, sharing snippets of home and hope. Rest, when it came, was a fleeting gift. Soldiers curled into themselves beneath threadbare blankets, the chill seeping through layers of wool, the rough texture of muddy earth pressed cold against their bodies. Yet these brief moments of stillness were vital for survival. Camaraderie flourished in these small interactions, a shared joke, a reassuring pat on the back, a cigarette passed quietly between friends. The bonds forged in hardship were strong, a source of comfort and strength that transcended the mud and misery. Together, the soldiers created a fragile but resilient community, navigating the daily challenges with courage and compassion. The flickering flames of small fires cast dancing shadows along the trench walls, lending a soft glow to the worn faces of soldiers. Gathered in small groups, the murmur of whispered conversations blended with the occasional rustle of canvas tents and the distant, steady boom of artillery. In these moments of relative calm, stories were shared, tales of home, dreams of the future, and memories that kept the men connected to a world beyond the trenches. The rough texture of wooden benches and cold metal equipment contrasted with the warmth of shared laughter and friendship. Letters passed from hand to hand, their words spoken, aloud with a mixture of nostalgia and hope. The smell of tobacco smoke mingled with the earthy scent of damp soil and worn leather, filling the air with a sense of camaraderie. Despite the ever-present danger, these moments provided solace, a brief escape, where soldiers could find strength in each other's company. The tactile feel of well-worn gear, the comforting weight of a shared blanket, or the reassuring grip of a comrade's hand became anchors. Amid uncertainty, daily routines from patrols to repairs were punctuated by these human connections, nurturing the spirit as much as the body. The interplay of sensory experiences, sights, sounds, textures, and scents wove a rich tapestry of life in the trenches. Amid the relentless hardships, the soldiers' resilience and bonds shone brightly, illuminating even the darkest days. The early morning chill lingered, but the warmth of friendship and shared purpose pushed back against the cold. Men exchanged knowing glances and quiet smiles, small gestures that spoke volumes in a place where words were often too heavy to speak aloud. The rough bark of wooden rifle stocks and the worn leather of boots told stories of countless battles and miles marched in moments of rest. Soldiers wrote letters with shaking hands, their words bridging the vast distance between trenches and home. The flicker of candlelight illuminated furrowed brows and hopeful eyes, each stroke of the pen a lifeline. The sound of quiet laughter, rare and precious, broke through the tension, a reminder that even in war, joy could be found. As the day unfolded, the rhythm of trench life continued, a delicate balance of duty, endurance, and brotherhood. The men leaned on each other, finding strength in shared hardship and the unspoken promise that they would not face the darkness alone. Through mud, cold, and fear, these bonds endured, a testament to the indomitable human spirit. The sounds of the trench were a symphony of survival, the steady drip of water, the rustle of canvas, the murmur of voices blending with distant echoes of conflict. Each texture told a story, the roughness of woolen uniforms, the grit of mud-caked boots, the cold hardness of rifle metal. In quiet moments, soldiers found solace in small comforts, a shared cigarette, a whispered joke, the warmth of a companion's presence. The camaraderie forged in this harsh environment was a vital lifeline, anchoring men to their humanity amid the chaos. These bonds transcended background and rank, creating a brotherhood bound by shared sacrifice and unwavering support. Together, they navigated the unrelenting challenges of trench life, their resilience a testament to enduring hope. The daily routine, though grueling, was punctuated by these human connections, the true sustenance that kept spirits alive. In the trenches, where uncertainty reigned, friendship and camaraderie were the steady beacons guiding men through darkness. The trenches, though filled with mud and misery, were also places of profound human connection. Men leaned on each other, sharing burdens and stories, laughter and fears, weaving a network of support that transcended the bleak surroundings. The rough-hewn walls echoed with whispered plans and quiet encouragements, a testament to the unbreakable spirit that bound them together. In moments of respite, soldiers found strength in simple gestures, a comforting touch, a shared cigarette, a smile exchanged across the mud. These acts of kindness became anchors, steadying hearts and minds in the face of constant uncertainty. The texture of friendship, rough but resilient, was a lifeline amid the unforgiving landscape. Through the daily grind of guard duty, repairs, and waiting. The soldiers built a community rooted in trust and shared endurance. It was in this fragile yet steadfast camaraderie that many found the courage to face another day. Quiet moments of reflection were rare but deeply cherished. Soldiers gazed up at the sky when the fog lifted, searching the distant stars for comfort and guidance. The cold air carried the faint scent of pine and earth, mingling with memories of home and hope for the future. Letters from loved ones were reread, their words a balm to weary souls and a reminder of life beyond the trenches. Amid the mud and chaos, these connections to the past and future were lifelines that nurtured resilience. The daily routines, though grueling and repetitive, were punctuated by these small but vital moments of peace and reflection. Through the fog of war, camaraderie and hope shone brightly, lighting the way forward. In the trenches, survival was more than physical endurance. It was the strength of spirit and the bonds of brotherhood that carried men through. As the day wore on, the trench buzzed quietly with activity. The soldiers' movements, a blend of exhaustion and determination. Tools scraped against wood and metal as repairs continued. The repetitive sounds grounding the men amid the chaos. Voices low and steady exchanged instructions and encouragement, a rhythm that brought order to the disorder. Moments of laughter surfaced, a brief shining respite that brightened the gloomy surroundings. Soldiers took time to care for each other, sharing cigarettes, offering food, or simply lending a listening ear. These acts of kindness, though small, forged bonds that proved stronger than steel. The trenches, though a harsh and unforgiving environment, became a place where humanity endured through shared struggle. Every patched uniform, every repaired boot, and every exchanged word was a thread in the fabric of survival. Together, the soldiers faced the relentless challenges, their daily routine a testament to resilience and brotherhood. In the fading light of afternoon, shadows lengthened along the muddy walls, and the air grew cooler. Men gathered in small groups, their faces tired but resolute, sharing stories and memories that stretched far beyond the trenches. The worn texture of wooden benches and cold metal reminded them of the harsh world they endured. Yet, within these rough confines, a fragile warmth blossomed. Shared cigarettes passed slowly from hand to hand, the smoke curling upward in lazy spirals, carrying with it whispers of home and hope. Letters were read aloud softly, their words weaving threads of connection and comfort through the cold air. Even as danger loomed, these moments offered solace, a brief refuge where the bonds of friendship fortified the spirit. The tactile feel of a comrade's shoulder, the familiar weight of a shared blanket, the steady rhythm of breathing, all became anchors in a world turned upside down. Daily tasks and routines continued, but it was these human connections that truly sustained the men. In the trenches, life was a delicate balance of hardship and hope, loss and laughter, despair and determination. Together, the soldiers forged a community that could withstand the darkest days, bound by shared experience and unyielding support. The evening chill settled over the trenches as twilight deepened, wrapping the world in a muted silence. The distant rumble of artillery softened to a low murmur, and the flicker of lamps cast gentle pools of light along the narrow pathways. Men gathered near the fire pits, their faces illuminated by the warm glow, sharing whispered conversations and quiet laughter. The rough texture of mud-caked hands met in reassuring grips, a silent promise of solidarity and strength. Even in the darkness, moments of tenderness emerged, a shared cigarette, a soft word of encouragement, a nod that conveyed understanding beyond speech. Some soldiers pulled blankets tighter, drawing comfort from the simple warmth against the pervasive cold. Letters were passed again, treasured and reread, their words weaving hope into the fabric of night. These acts of connection, small yet profound, were beacons against the shadows of war. In the trenches, amid uncertainty and fear, the resilience of the human spirit shone brightest in these shared moments. The trenches, a landscape scarred by war, were also battlegrounds for an invisible enemy, disease. The damp, crowded conditions bred illnesses that ravaged soldiers' bodies as fiercely as any bullet or shell. Lurking beneath the mud and misery were threats like trenchfoot, influenza, dysentery, and the dreaded trench fever, each leaving its mark with relentless cruelty. The smell of Antiseptic and medicine mingled faintly with the ever-present odors of earth and sweat in the field. Hospitals that dotted the rear lines. These makeshift sanctuaries were a chaotic blend of sights and sounds, groans of pain, hurried footsteps, the sharp bark of orders, and the distant wail of ambulances. Intense and hastily erected wooden wards. Doctors and nurses worked tirelessly amid the chaos, their faces etched with exhaustion, but driven by determination. The sharp sting of disinfectants and the cold touch of bandages were constant reminders of the harsh reality of injury and illness. Soldiers arrived with wounds raw and infections festering, their uniforms soaked with blood and mud, faces pale but eyes burning with willpower. Despite the grim circumstances, the spirit of resilience prevailed. Men clung to hope, their strength bolstered by the care of medical staff and the bonds of comradeship. Nutrition played a vital role in recovery, but food was often scarce and of poor quality, complicating the healing process. Simple meals of broth, hardtack softened in tea, and occasional fresh vegetables were carefully rationed to sustain the weak and wounded. The taste was bland, but the warmth and sustenance were critical, offering comfort and energy to bodies worn thin by disease and trauma. Nurses moved quietly among the beds, offering gentle words, clean linens, and soothing touches, acts of kindness that rekindled flickering spirits. The sounds of whispered prayers, the soft rustle of bandages, and the steady rhythm of breathing filled the wards with a fragile calm. Every day was a battle, not just against wounds and infection, but against despair and fear. Yet, amid this struggle, stories of courage and recovery emerged, illuminating the unyielding human spirit. The long hours in the field hospitals were punctuated by the distant clatter of stretchers and the low murmur of anxious voices. Men lay side by side, their faces gaunt and eyes heavy with pain, yet within them burned a fierce determination to survive. The air was thick with the scent of antiseptic, mixed with earth and sweat, a reminder of the constant battle against infection. Doctors and orderlies moved swiftly, their hands steady despite exhaustion, applying bandages, administering medicine, and offering reassurance. Amid the chaos, the sounds of medical instruments, clinking and soft footsteps created a rhythm, a pulse of life persisting against the odds. Some soldiers suffered grievous wounds, shattered limbs, deep shrapnel cuts, burns, yet their resolve never wavered. The care they received, though rudimentary by modern standards, was often the difference between life and death. Nutrition was a critical component of healing, but the limited diet posed constant challenges. Broths made from boiled bones or vegetables were painstakingly prepared, providing essential nutrients in a form easy to digest. Hardtack soaked in tea softened for easier consumption, and occasional fresh eggs or milk boosted strength when available. The smell of simmering broth offered a faint comfort, a reminder of home-cooked meals left behind. Nurses, often working around the clock, became symbols of compassion and hope. Their gentle touch, soothing voices, and tireless dedication brought light to dark hours. Many soldiers credited their recovery, not only to medicine but to the kindness and care that filled the wards. Despite the grim realities, moments of laughter and camaraderie surfaced, stories shared, songs hummed, and quiet jokes exchanged. These small acts of normalcy helped rebuild shattered spirits, knitting together the fabric of resilience. Pervasive threat of illness extended beyond wounds to diseases that swept through the trenches with devastating effect. Trench fever, spread by lice, was among the most feared afflictions, bringing high fevers, debilitating pain, and weeks of incapacitation. Soldiers described the relentless aches and exhaustion that left them bedridden, longing for recovery and release. Influenza outbreaks ravaged units, the flu's rapid spread overwhelming the limited medical facilities and staff. Dysentery and other gastrointestinal diseases, fueled by contaminated water and poor sanitation, claimed countless lives. Their symptoms both cruel and relentless. The stench of sickness permeated the air in hospital tents, mixing with antiseptics and the ever-present odor of mud and decay. Medical staff faced overwhelming challenges, their supplies stretched thin and their knowledge limited by the era's medical science. Yet they worked tirelessly, innovating treatments and offering comfort to the suffering. Nutrition remained a cornerstone of recovery, with doctors emphasizing the importance of diet even as resources dwindled. Efforts were made to provide the sick with nourishing foods, though shortages and the realities of war often limited these attempts. Despite the hardships, many soldiers showed remarkable resilience, their spirits buoyed by camaraderie, faith, and the hope of healing. In letters home, some wrote candidly about the toll of illness, but also about the strength found in enduring and supporting one another. The fight against disease was a grim but vital front in the war, one that tested courage and endurance in ways as profound as any battle. Medical evacuations were a constant presence at the front. The arrival of ambulances marked by the sharp clatter of wheels on wooden duckboards and the muffled cries of the wounded. Stretcher-bearers moved swiftly and carefully, their faces set with grim determination as they carried comrades away from the front lines to field hospitals or casualty clearing stations. The journey was perilous, the rough terrain and ongoing shellfire adding danger to an already harrowing experience. Yet the urgency and dedication of these men saved countless lives, providing critical care and hope. Field hospitals were often crowded and chaotic, with makeshift beds lined tightly in tents or hastily constructed wooden buildings. The sights were both sobering and inspiring. Soldiers bandaged and tended, doctors and nurses working tirelessly, and the ever-present hum of survival. The smell of disinfectant mixed with the earthy scent of mud and sweat, creating a poignant reminder of both life and loss. Despite limited resources and harsh conditions, medical staff showed remarkable skill and compassion, their efforts a beacon of humanity amid devastation. Recovery was often slow and painful, but the care and nutrition provided laid the foundation for healing. Stories of survival and return to duty inspired those still in the trenches, fueling resolve and hope. The harsh realities of sickness and injury were met with courage and solidarity, embodying the resilience that defined the soldiers. In the quiet corners of the field hospitals, moments of tenderness flickered amid the turmoil. Nurses gently cleaned wounds with warm water, their hands steady and soothing despite the endless demand. They whispered words of comfort, their voices soft against the clatter and cries that filled the wards. Soldiers, weakened by pain and exhaustion, found solace in these small acts of care, reminders that humanity endured amid suffering. The importance of nutrition in recovery was clear, yet providing adequate food remained a constant struggle. Fresh fruits and vegetables were rare, and meals often lacked the vitamins and calories needed to rebuild strength. Doctors improvised, supplementing diets with broths, powdered milk, and whatever fresh supplies could be procured. Every morsel mattered, fueling the body's fight against infection and injury. Medical staff coordinated with supply lines, striving to ensure that the sick received what little nourishment was possible in this harsh environment. Hope was nourished not only by medicine but by kindness, connection, and the relentless will to live. The resilience of the soldiers and their caregivers was a testament to the enduring human spirit, shining through even the darkest times. The sounds of the hospital wards were a blend of quiet groans, soft footsteps, and whispered prayers. Amid the rows of cots and stretchers, the flickering light of lanterns cast shadows that danced on tired faces. Doctors and nurses moved with practiced care, their expressions a mixture of determination and compassion. Each day brought new challenges, treating infections, managing pain, and providing comfort to those caught between life and death. Medical innovations, though limited by the era, offered glimmers of hope. Antiseptics like carbolic acid were used to reduce infections, and splints and bandages helped stabilize broken limbs. Despite the rudimentary tools, the skill and dedication of medical staff saved countless lives. Recovery was often slow and fraught with setbacks, but the perseverance of patients and caregivers alike was unwavering. Food remained a vital component, with nourishing broths and simple meals carefully prepared to aid healing. These moments of care and restoration were lifelines in a landscape dominated by destruction. The field hospitals, though grim, were places where hope persisted, fueled by science, compassion, and resilience. The relentless strain of war left many soldiers physically and emotionally drained, yet the bonds forged through shared hardship provided a vital source of strength. Men supported one another through illness and injury, their camaraderie extending beyond the trenches to the sterile wards of field hospitals. Letters and visits from comrades served as reminders that they were not alone, even when separated by pain and distance. In the quiet moments between treatments, stories were shared, memories of home, dreams for the future, and hopes for survival. These exchanges nurtured resilience and offered comfort amid uncertainty. Medical personnel, despite exhaustion and limited resources, continued their tireless efforts, embodying compassion in the face of overwhelming need. Their presence was a beacon of humanity, offering solace and care to those battered by warfare. Journey from injury to recovery was arduous, marked by setbacks and small victories. But it was also a testament to the enduring spirit of those who fought to live. Nutrition, care, and companionship intertwined to create pathways toward healing, weaving a tapestry of hope amid the ravages of conflict. Amid the endless cycle of battle and recovery, soldiers learned to cherish every small improvement, a decrease in fever, a healed wound, a regained strength, the simple pleasure of a warm meal, a kind word, or a gentle touch from a nurse could lift spirits and hasten healing. Broths simmered slowly over fires, their savory aroma filling the hospital tents and offering a fragile comfort to the sick. Hardtack biscuits, softened in tea, became easier to swallow, their bland taste a reminder of home's simpler offerings. Fresh vegetables and fruits, though rare, were celebrated for their life-giving vitamins and revitalizing properties. Medical staff worked tirelessly to supplement the limited diet, recognizing nutrition's crucial role in recovery. Patients formed bonds with caregivers, their gratitude evident in quiet smiles and whispered thanks. The long journey through sickness and injury was one of endurance, faith, and the relentless will to survive. Each day brought new challenges, but also new reasons to hope and persevere. The trenches may have been a place of hardship and loss, but the field hospitals stood as symbols of care, healing, and unyielding human spirit. The resilience of the human body and spirit was remarkable. Even in these harsh conditions, soldiers who once lay broken and weary gradually regained strength, their determination fueled by the care they received and the hope for a return to their comrades. The camaraderie of those recovering side by side created a new kind of brotherhood, one forged in shared vulnerability and healing. Convalescent wards echoed with quiet conversations and moments of laughter, brief respites from pain and uncertainty. Despite the relentless toll of war, these moments of recovery symbolized the enduring power of hope and human connection. As wounds healed and fevers subsided, many soldiers prepared to return to the trenches, carrying with them stories of survival and the unbreakable bonds formed in adversity. The cycle of injury and healing was a testament to the courage and perseverance that defined the generation. Though the scars of war would remain, both visible and unseen, the spirit to endure and rebuild remained unbroken. The men who returned from the hospitals often carried new strength, but also the heavy weight of what they had endured. Their experiences of sickness and healing became part of the shared narrative that bound the soldiers together. They spoke of nurses whose gentle hands offered comfort amid pain, of doctors who battled tirelessly against overwhelming odds. These stories were told in whispers and laughter, in quiet moments by the fire, keeping alive the memory of resilience and compassion. The journey through injury and recovery was not just physical but deeply emotional, shaping the men and their outlook on life and war. Nutrition, medical care, and the bonds of friendship intertwined to create a path toward healing, a fragile but vital lifeline in the midst of destruction. As these soldiers rejoined their units, they brought with them not only renewed bodies but renewed hope, a testament to the strength of the human spirit. The war continued, but so did the courage and endurance of those who fought and healed in the aftermath of treatment. Returning soldiers found themselves changed, both physically and mentally, carrying the marks of battle and recovery. Their presence was a reminder of survival against the odds, of wounds healed and spirits unbroken. The camaraderie within the trenches deepened as these men shared their stories, their resilience inspiring those still fighting on the front lines. Each scar, each tale of hardship and hope, added to the collective memory of endurance that defined the soldiers. Though the pain of injury lingered, the determination to continue and support one another never wavered. The field hospitals and the routines of care were woven into the broader tapestry of trench life, integral to the soldier's experience and survival. Through sickness, injury, and healing, the bonds of brotherhood were tested and strengthened. The journey was arduous, but it was also a testament to the enduring human will, a powerful force that carried men through the darkest days of war. The trenches were not just the domain of soldiers. Unseen yet vital contributors worked tirelessly alongside them, shaping the course of war in ways often overlooked. Women, in particular, played indispensable roles as nurses tending to the wounded, as cooks preparing meager meals, and as support staff maintaining the fragile infrastructure of military life. The clatter of nurses' footsteps on wooden floors, the soft murmur of whispered prayers, and the gentle touch of hands cleaning wounds created an atmosphere of care. Amid chaos. Inside crowded field hospitals, the scent of antiseptic mingled with the warmth of freshly laundered linens, a stark contrast to the muddy trenches outside. Nurses moved with grace and determination, their voices calm and reassuring, soothing pain and fear alike. Beyond the medical wards, women cooked hearty stews and brewed warming tea, their efforts sustaining both body and spirit. The aroma of simmering broth wafted through mess tents, mingling with the earthy smells of mud and smoke. These meals, though simple, were treasured, small comforts that reminded soldiers of home and humanity. Animals were another crucial part of trench life, their presence a blend of practicality and companionship. Horses carried supplies and ammunition across treacherous terrain, their heavy breaths visible in the cold air as they labored tirelessly. The feel of their warm coats and the rhythm of their steady footsteps offered soldiers a grounding presence amid the chaos. Carrier pigeons, small yet vital, darted through the skies, their soft coos carrying messages that saved lives and coordinated battles. Dogs served as companions, sentries, and even messengers, their keen senses alert to dangers unseen by human eyes. Their loyal presence offered solace, a reminder of loyalty and protection in a perilous world. Other unexpected helpers included scavengers and volunteers who brought news, supplies, and aid, faces often forgotten but crucial in the fabric of trench life. Together, these women, animals, and helpers formed an unseen network of support, sustaining soldiers in ways beyond weaponry and strategy. Their contributions were woven into the daily rhythm of the trenches, nurturing hope, resilience, and survival. The steady clatter of pots and pans from makeshift kitchens filled the air as women worked tirelessly to prepare meals for the hungry soldiers. Their hands, skilled and swift, transformed limited supplies into nourishing dishes that provided not only sustenance but comfort. The smell of fresh bread, baking or stew simmering over open flames was a welcome contrast to the pervasive damp and mud of the trenches. In these moments, the soldiers found a taste of normalcy, a connection to the home lives and loved ones waiting far away. Nurses moved quietly through crowded wards, their footsteps soft against wooden floors worn smooth by countless patients. Their eyes held both compassion and resolve as they tended to wounds, administered medicine, and offered words of encouragement. The scent of iodine and clean linens accompanied their work, creating an atmosphere of care amidst the harsh realities of war. Beyond their medical duties, women also provided emotional support, listening to fears and hopes, becoming pillars of strength in the darkest hours. Animals, integral to survival, worked silently alongside the men. Horses burdened with supplies navigated muddy paths with careful steps, their steady breathing a calming presence. The coarse texture of their manes and the warmth of their bodies offered fleeting comfort amid the cold and chaos. Carrier pigeons flitted through the sky, their small wings beating urgently as they carried messages vital to strategy and communication. Dogs, ever alert and loyal, patrolled the trenches and camps, their keen senses often warning of approaching danger. Their presence was a balm to the soldiers' spirits, a reminder of companionship and trust. The combined efforts of these unseen helpers, women, animals, and volunteers, were threads woven tightly into the fabric of trench life. Together, they nurtured hope and resilience, sustaining the soldiers through hardship and uncertainty. In the dim light of early mornings, women prepared breakfasts that, though simple, carried the warmth of home into the cold trenches. The crackle of fires, and the aroma of brewing coffee stirred weary soldiers, offering moments of comfort before the day's trials. Their steady hands worked tirelessly, baking bread and mending clothes, filling the trenches with a quiet strength that bolstered morale. Nurses soothed fevers and dressed wounds with gentle care, their presence a reminder of compassion amid cruelty. The soft rustle of bandages and the faint hum of whispered prayers created an oasis of calm in the chaos. Horses, with their steady gait and warm breath, served as indispensable partners, hauling supplies and aiding communication lines. Their hooves struck a steady rhythm against muddy paths, a heartbeat of endurance echoing through the trenches. Carrier pigeons, small but mighty, soared above battlefields, their journeys vital to the flow of information and strategy. Dogs, alert and unwavering, provided security and companionship, their keen senses often proving life-saving. The roles of these helpers extended beyond tasks. They were symbols of hope and normalcy, anchoring soldiers to the world beyond war. Their contributions, often overlooked, were the lifeblood sustaining the fragile ecosystem of the trenches. In every corner, their presence wove a narrative of resilience, humanity, and shared survival. Women also served as ambulance drivers and clerks, navigating treacherous roads to bring the wounded to safety and keep vital records. Their courage and determination broke traditional barriers, proving essential in the machinery of war. Behind the lines, support staff maintained communication networks, repaired equipment, and ensured supply chains remained intact. These unseen efforts, though far from the front, were critical threads in the vast web of wartime survival. Animals like mules and donkeys carried heavy loads through rugged terrain, their endurance matched only by the soldiers who cared for them. Horses, often injured but steadfast, were tended by dedicated veterinary teams, their recovery a small triumph in a brutal landscape. The sounds of neighing, soft whinnies, and gentle pats offered moments of calm and connection to nature amid destruction. Carrier pigeons, carefully housed in lofts near command posts, were tended daily, their training and health vital to communication success. Dogs were trained for various roles, from detecting explosives to carrying messages, their loyalty unwavering. These creatures became companions, their presence a balm to the soldiers, spirits and a reminder of life beyond the trenches. Together, women, animals, and helpers formed an intricate support system, a network of life that defied the desolation around them. Their unseen stories revealed the depth of human and animal contribution, a testament to resilience and cooperation in wartime. The trenches were a world where survival depended not only on firepower, but also on the steadfast support of countless unseen helpers. Women, in roles often overshadowed by the roar of battle, provided essential care and sustenance, their tireless work a lifeline for soldiers. Their voices, though soft against the harsh sounds of war, carried strength and compassion that nurtured hope. Animals, too, were silent heroes, their endurance and loyalty vital in transporting goods, relaying messages, and offering companionship. The presence of a horse's warm breath or a dog's faithful gaze provided comfort amid uncertainty. These helpers shared in the hardships, their own struggles intertwined with those of the soldiers they served. Together, they formed a resilient community, a web of support that sustained life in the trenches. Their stories, often unspoken, deserve to be remembered as integral to the tapestry of war. In acknowledging these unseen contributors, we honor the full spectrum of courage and sacrifice that defined this brutal chapter of history. In the shadow of war's destruction, the quiet perseverance of these unseen helpers stood as a testament to resilience and hope. Their presence, whether a nurse's gentle touch, a horse's steady strength, or a pigeon's determined flight, wove life and light into the darkest of places. Together, soldiers, women, animals, and volunteers created a fragile but unbreakable network of survival and solidarity. This hidden tapestry of care and companionship nurtured the spirit of those facing unimaginable hardship, though often overlooked. These stories of dedication and loyalty remind us that war's true endurance lies in the human heart and its capacity for compassion. Through their combined efforts, life persisted, even in the mud, the cold, and the chaos of the trenches. The impact of these unseen helpers extended far beyond their immediate roles. influencing morale and the day-to-day survival of soldiers in profound ways. Their presence offered comfort and a reminder of normalcy, anchoring men to the world they fought to protect. Women's laughter, animals' gentle nuzzles, and the steady rhythm of caring hands became small beacons of hope. In the trenches, where uncertainty and fear were constant companions, these moments of connection sustained resilience. Soldiers drew strength not only from their comrades but from the entire network of support that surrounded them. This collective endurance was a powerful force, fueling the courage needed to face each new day. By recognizing the contributions of these women, animals, and helpers, we gain a fuller understanding of the complexity and humanity woven into the fabric of war. Their stories, though often silent, resonate as enduring testaments to compassion and survival. The trenches echoed with countless stories, many untold, of bravery not only in battle but in everyday acts of kindness and duty. Each nurse's comforting word, every loyal animal's presence, and each volunteer's effort added layers of strength to the soldiers' resolve. Through mud, blood, and hardship, these unseen helpers illuminated paths of hope and humanity. Their roles, though often overshadowed by the chaos of combat, were pillars supporting the fragile life within the trenches. The interwoven lives of men, women, and animals created a tapestry rich in resilience, compassion, and courage. Acknowledging these contributions honors the full spectrum of sacrifice and endurance in war. Together, they remind us that even amid devastation, the human spirit persists, bound by care, loyalty, and unwavering strength. These unseen stories form the heartbeat of trench life, quiet yet powerful testaments to the resilience and humanity that flourished. Amid devastation, the courage of women nursing the wounded, the loyalty of animals navigating treacherous terrain, and the tireless efforts of volunteers all intertwined to sustain hope. In the mud and cold, these helpers were lifelines, threads of warmth woven through the fabric of war. Their contributions, often overlooked, were essential to survival and morale, reminding us that war's legacy is built on countless acts of unseen bravery and care. Through their dedication, the trenches became more than a battlefield. They became a community bound by endurance and compassion. In honoring these stories, we honor the enduring human spirit that refuses to be broken, even in the darkest times. The echoes of their efforts resonate through history: the nurse's tireless care, the animal's unwavering loyalty, and the helper's quiet perseverance. Their stories enrich our understanding of war, revealing layers of strength beyond the battlefield. In every act of kindness, in every shared burden, the true spirit of the trenches shines through. The legacy of these unseen heroes lives on, a testament to resilience, compassion, and the enduring bonds forged in hardship. Their contributions remind us that even amid the horrors of war, humanity can prevail. Through their courage and dedication, life in the trenches found its fragile but unbreakable heartbeat. The courage and devotion of these unseen helpers inspired countless soldiers, offering comfort and hope when it was needed most. Their presence created a network of support that transcended the battlefield, knitting together a community determined to endure. Through mud, misery, and loss, the steadfastness of nurses, the loyalty of animals, and the dedication of volunteers sustained life. Their stories, though often silent, echo across time, reminders of the profound impact of compassion and solidarity. In the harshest conditions, they nurtured the human spirit, proving that even in war, kindness prevails. Together, they forged a legacy of resilience that continues to inspire and teach us today. Their tireless efforts often went unrecognized, yet their impact was felt deeply by every soldier who drew strength from their care. The bond between soldiers and their animal companions transcended words, a touch of warmth amid the cold, a moment of solace in the chaos. Women's unwavering dedication in hospitals and kitchens brought healing and comfort that lifted spirits beyond measure. Volunteers and support staff, working behind the scenes, wove a vital safety net that kept the wheels of war turning. These interconnected roles formed a hidden backbone of the trenches, a testament to collective resilience and humanity. In remembering their contributions, we honor the full breadth of courage that defined the First World War. Their stories enrich the tapestry of history, reminding us that even in darkness, light can be found. Night settled softly over the trenches, a quiet veil drawn across the scarred landscape. The cold air carried whispers of distant artillery, faint booms echoing like a somber lullaby. Flickering lamps cast gentle pools of light, their warm glow dancing against the damp earthen walls. Soldiers nestled into their sparse shelters, faces shadowed but calm, eyes heavy with exhaustion and hope. The texture of mud clung stubbornly to worn uniforms, a tactile reminder of the day's trials. Not yet beneath the weariness, a quiet strength endured, a spirit unbroken by hardship and fear. In the hush of night, camaraderie blossomed anew, bonds forged in shared struggle, offering solace and courage. Soft murmurs of prayer, gentle laughter, and whispered stories wove a tapestry of connection. Amid isolation, the scent of wet earth mixed with smoke and faint traces of cooking fires, grounding men in the moment. Each breath, each heartbeat, a testament to the will to survive, and the hope for a brighter dawn. Reflections drifted on the memories of home, loved ones' faces, quiet streets, the promise of peace. These thoughts nurtured resilience, planting seeds of strength that would carry soldiers through the darkest hours. Though the trenches were a world of mud and misery, there were also places where humanity shone brightest. The enduring spirit of the men who lived and fought there remains a powerful legacy, a story of courage, brotherhood, and hope. The soft rustle of canvas tents and the occasional clink of tin cups filled the stillness, creating a quiet symphony of life at rest. Stars peeked through gaps in the smoky sky, their distant light a reminder of the vast world beyond the trenches. Men lay side by side, their bodies weary, but their spirits intertwined in unspoken solidarity. Cold seeped into bones, yet warmth radiated from shared blankets and the closeness of comrades. Faint voices murmured in the dark, memories shared, hopes whispered, prayers offered. The lingering scent of damp earth and smoldering fires mingled, enveloping the trenches in a comforting embrace. In these moments, the harsh realities of war softened, replaced by a fragile peace born of resilience and brotherhood. Each soldier carried within him a story of endurance, of battles faced, losses mourned, and friendships forged. The flickering lamplight illuminated faces etched with courage and determination, reflecting the unyielding human spirit. Though surrounded by destruction, the men found strength in connection, a reminder that even in darkness, hope endures. The quiet night stretched on, wrapping the trenches in a serene stillness that belied the day's turmoil. Soft breaths mingled with the distant crackle of artillery, a rhythmic reminder of the ever-present danger. Men lay awake, eyes tracing the patterns of stars above, finding solace in the vastness beyond the battlefield. The rough texture of mud beneath them contrasted with the softness of worn blankets, a tactile reminder of their fragile existence in this suspended moment. Thoughts drifted to home, familiar faces, warm fires, and the simple joys of peace. The bonds forged through hardship offered comfort, a silent promise of solidarity and survival. Stories of shared laughter, quiet bravery, and unbreakable friendship filled the air, weaving strength into the night. These moments of reflection nurtured hope, planting seeds of resilience to carry soldiers through the trials ahead. Though the trenches were scarred and unforgiving, the human spirit within them remained luminous and enduring. The night deepened, the chill pressing in. Yet within the hearts of the soldiers burned a steady flame of hope. Each flicker of the lantern light was a beacon in the darkness, a symbol of perseverance and unyielding spirit. The camaraderie shared in whispered conversations and gentle touches created a fortress against despair. Though far from home and surrounded by hardship, the men found strength in each other's presence. The quiet resilience of the human spirit echoed softly through the trenches, a testament to courage beyond measure. As dawn awaited, the soldiers rested, their minds steady with the knowledge that together they could endure anything. In the stillness of the night, hope and brotherhood intertwined, lighting the path toward another day. A new day beckoned, one filled with uncertainty, challenge, and the unshakable spirit of those who called these trenches home. Men stirred, faces set with determination yet softened by the brief peace of night. The echoes of their endurance resounded quietly, a testament to courage in the face of relentless adversity. Though the horrors of war were ever present, so too was the unyielding hope that sustained them. In the silence before battle, the bonds of brotherhood, and the strength of the human spirit, shone brightest. These stories from the trenches endure reminders of resilience, sacrifice, and the enduring power of hope.